So the simplest question I have is why? Why did this happen? How did we get here? And if you're thinking back of the culture with all of its faults, the culture of previous decades in this country, right, where you did have some of those overlapping institutions, again, with all of their weaknesses and faults and downsides, how did we get to a culture where, you know, and through culture, I mean, this is how we do things around here. How did we get to a culture where we can allow some of these symptoms like homelessness, whether it's caused by economic situation or emotional issues? How do we think about those roots, the drivers, and to think both at the federal level, at the state, at the community level? What did we lose that got us to where we are today?
Well, first, let's think how these issues connect to some broader questions. Why did Brexit take place? Why do you have Frenchmen on the streets protesting in Paris? Why is there so much dissatisfaction in the United States, in parts of Europe, with governments, with leaders, with elites? For me, all of this is driven to some extent by what has been lost in terms of the nature of our societies. They've left a lot of people behind. Those people feel underappreciated, undercared for. It's partly in the policies, the politics, the rhetoric of the people who run the countries. But I also think it's very much connected to the what they're seeing in their lives and the sense of loss, the sense of disconnection, and other things like that leave those people very alienated. And so let's think, there's a lot of products we're not even touching upon in our discussion. It's not just the problem of the material things that we see locally. I think it affects the politics of countries. And in terms of how this happened, a lot of it's simply the product. I mean, the product of what has changed in our society since the 60s. Not all of it had to be that way. I think there's a lot of things we could have done differently. But first, you do have a reaction in the 60s and afterwards to the fact that the society was too stultifying, too conformist, and I think that's a natural reaction. A lot of people felt discriminated against. Civil rights movement in the United States, and then other rights movement, whether it's women, whether it's gays, other movements. I think all of that is highly legitimate. People that are being constrained certainly have a right to seek out more freedom, more opportunity, and to be unhappy with the status quo. However, I also think what we've created in the United States, again, more than you have in Europe, and that's why these problems are worse. We've built a society that's based upon taking the best students, the most capable people, and we've basically told them all, leave wherever you are, leave your neighborhood, leave your city, leave your community, and go work in a few cities. Go work in some multinational companies, multilateral institutions, work in government, whatever it is. So we've had an enormous brain drain. Just think of the brain drain out of all the neighborhoods. So where you used to have a relatively equal distribution, it was never equal, of course, but a rarely equal distribution of institutions and talent, even if some of those neighborhoods were discriminated against. Think about black neighborhoods versus white neighborhoods and other Native American places versus white places. There was discrimination, but because of the way we've become such a meritocracy, we've drawn a lot of talent to a few places and we've left a lot of places behind. And that's one thing. Second thing, think about how we've thought about designing our places, our space. The United States is a country that seems to be built for roads. Everything is designed to get from point A to point B. There's very little thought whether A or B is flourishing. The key point is you need to have your nice house, your nice grass lawn, Let's not talk about the environment with that. Your nice green lawn, your house, your car, and you need to be able to go from point A to point B. And that seems to be how we've designed the country. We didn't have to design the country this way. Whether it's because of the way policies have been adopted, whether it's the way developers take their relationship to government, whether it's because of our idea of freedom, our idea of the American dream, all those things have led to certainly a development pattern that seems almost designed to isolate ourselves from each other. You go to the suburbs, I'm up here in Maryland, you go to the suburbs, not so far from me, and you see house after house after house. There's no center to a neighborhood. There's no community school. We used to have community schools. We used to have churches, community schools. We used to have local shopping. Used to have some sort of institutions. Could be civic. It also could just be networks of families, what have you. Lots of things brought people together. Some of them were just spontaneous. In my neighborhood, it's possible. I see what's possible. I go to the supermarket, which is 10 minutes walk from me, and I will bump into 3 neighbors. And I can't get in. I mean, sometimes I want to get in and out fast, but there's also a joy in knowing that I'm going to meet someone and I don't know who I'm going to meet. And there's a couple of restaurants and there's one drugstore. It's not beautiful, but it's a center. There's a couple of parks. Probably about 3/4 of the kids in my daughter's or my children's schools come from walking distance from where I am now. So think about what those, but for many Americans, they don't have that. They shop, even before the COVID, they shop, they go by car to shop. Their kids are in a school that's not so close to where they live. There's no way for them locally to meet lots of people. Maybe if you live in a cul-de-sac, you'll meet your neighbors, but if you live on a street with lots of traffic, you won't. I mean, we've designed our country in many ways. Yes, some of it is technology, some of it is reaction to the way life was before, but I think a lot of it is the choices we have made of a society to go for the material, and the end result is that we've designed a society that isolates us from one another on many, many levels.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I'm hearing a lot of law of unintended consequences. We did things without thinking what will happen. But usually
it goes back, if I may interject, we have to think about the material well-being and the social well-being of people. That's extremely important. In a fragile state, I'm thinking more of the macro social dynamics. That's my entry point. In a more developed society, the GDP growth figure is what we pay attention on. What's the social dynamic statistic? You can't create it, but clearly American lifespans are going down. Something is seriously wrong. We're not thinking very hard about the choices we make and how they impact people and what it means for their well-being. And that, to me, it's all relational, and it has lots of, as you say, that's unintended consequences, but it has great implications for people and their well-being.